Coming up next on Arizona Horizon, the impact of U.S. tariffs on tomatoes imported from Mexico. Also tonight, a look into the status of local and national weather warning systems. And we'll hear about new initiatives being implemented to combat Arizona's persistent doctor shortage. The stories and more next on Arizona Horizon.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Arizona PBS, members of your public television station.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizon. I'm Ted Simons. Check of headlines. Speaker of the U.S. House Mike Johnson plans to shut the House down for an early month-long summer recess without addressing calls for more transparency into the investigation of the late Jeffrey Epstein, a sex offender and former friend of President Trump. The Speaker's decision is not sitting well with Democrats and some of Johnson's fellow Republicans.
It would behoove the Speaker to bring this to the floor. It would be in the best interest of this institution. Just vote this out, give it to the Senate, and let them do their thing. I don't think this issue is going away over August. I think that was the admonition of our Speaker in there, was just sort of stick your head in the sand, let the administration maybe dissipate this by dribbling some stuff out. I mean, I'm heavily paraphrasing, but I think that's his strategy, and I don't think it's going to work.
But the Speaker insists that there's no reason for Congress to move on at this point, at least not right now.
You have to allow the legislation to ripen, and you also have to allow the administration the space to do what it is doing. The president has said clearly, and he has now ordered his DOJ to do what it is we've all needed DOJ to do for years now, and that is to get everything released. So they're in the process of that. There's no purpose for Congress to push an administration to do something that they're already doing.
Other headlines. Former Navajo Nation President Jonathan Nez today announced that he's running for Arizona's 2nd Congressional District. Nez, a Democrat, lost to Republican Congressman Eli Crane in last year's race for CD2, but the race was relatively close, and Nez outperformed fellow Democrat Vice President Kamala Harris in the district. Nez was immediately endorsed by most of the state's top Democrats after today's announcement. Longtime local civic leader Suzanne Feaster died last week. She died of cancer. She was 67. Suzanne Feaster led a number of Arizona civic-minded organizations, most recently Vitalist Health Foundation, where she was president and chief executive. Indeed, name a local civic group, and Suzanne Feaster was likely a part of it, including the Greater Phoenix Chamber of Commerce, the Arizona Hospital and Healthcare Association, the State Parks Foundation, and Greater Phoenix Leadership. Suzanne Feaster, dead at 67. And another passing to report. Ozzy Osbourne has died. He was 76 and had a number of health issues, including Parkinson's disease. Osbourne helped invent heavy metal as lead singer of Black Sabbath. He went on to a successful solo career, both on stage and on TV, as the off-balanced focal point of a popular reality TV show. Osbourne's death comes just weeks after he appeared at what was billed as a final show with Black Sabbath. Ozzy Osbourne, dead at 76. The Trump administration recently implemented a 17% tariff on tomatoes imported from Mexico. The move is expected to impact Arizona's agricultural industry in a variety of ways. To learn more, we welcome Domenico Ferraro from the Economic Department at ASU's W.P. Carey School of Business. Good to have you here. Thank you so much.
It's great to be here.
Yeah. Okay. 17% duty on fresh tomatoes from Mexico. The goal, I believe, is to rebuild the U.S. tomato market in particular here. Does that make sense to you?
Well, it makes sense if you take the perspective of a Florida producer of tomato. They are a big producer of tomato, including California. So from that point of view, one could argue that these tariffs protect Florida producers, so they would benefit from this trade restriction to some extent. However, if you take the point of view of all the states that import tomatoes from Mexico, like Arizona, that is a big importer of tomatoes, then the perspective is different, because there is no protection of any Arizona producers, but a tariff is going to increase the price of fresh tomato that we all going to find at grocery stores.
The impact on Arizona's tomato industry, the agricultural industry, I mean, the impact is a lot in a variety of ways, in the sense that, I mean, you have to travel, you have folks that do the packing, that do the traveling, that do distribution and these sorts of things, and we're a border state. That's going to have to hit us pretty hard.
I agree, and it's going to affect the entire chain of distribution and production related to tomatoes. It's not about the price of fresh tomatoes in a grocery store. It's also about the price of salads and pizzas that are produced with tomatoes. In addition to that, it's going to be the entire chain of distributors of fresh tomatoes to wholesalers and retailers that is likely to be affected by it.
So who absorbs these tariffs? Again, the Trump administration and the president himself, he keeps saying this is going to cost Mexico. Mexico's going to have to pay for all this. It seems to me that the industry, people within the industry, and eventually the consumers will pay for all this. What am I missing here?
No, that's a good question. So let me get a thing straight first. So what is a tariff on tomato? What it means is that every time a fresh tomato crosses the border from Mexico to Arizona, the U.S. importer is going to pay a duty, a tariff of 17% on any fresh tomato imported from Mexico. Say the price of a tomato is 100, now you're going to pay 117. Now, in the immediate impact on prices of tomato is that prices are going to go up. Then the question becomes whether Mexican producers are going to anticipate a lower demand from Arizonan importers, of U.S. importers, and they may end up lowering the price of tomatoes exported to the U.S.
Interesting. So there could actually be a balancing out once you get down that line?
I think if you look at research in the last 50 years, you say that there's going to be some balancing out, but it's hard to believe that it's going to be all the way. I think overall the prices are going to go up perhaps by 10% if a duty remains at 17%.
Will they go up higher in Arizona than they will in, I don't know, Idaho or New Hampshire? I mean,
it depends whether that state, the farmers of those states actually produce a tomato which is a close substitute of the tomatoes that we import from Mexico. Right? To the extent that there is no close substitute or alternative to the greenhouse tomato produced in Mexico, then the prices may change differentially depending where you live.
Interesting. All right, from what I understand here, Mexico supplies 70% of the tomato market in the United States. That's up from 30% just decades ago. It sounds like some dumping is going on. Is dumping going on?
I think to some extent what we need to point out is that over the years, the Mexican government has been subsidizing the production of greenhouse fresh tomatoes to the extent that we think that is impeding the fair game of competition and trade among countries. Then the case for anti-dumping could be made. Then the question is that this tariff would protect Florida producers, but it will still be detrimental for Arizona, because we are the big importer of fresh tomatoes from Mexico.
Andy, you mentioned fresh tomatoes and you mentioned greenhouse tomatoes. This is what comes up from Mexico. When you go to Florida, you got the vine. They're basically grown out of the ground or whatever and packed that way. They're grown green and then they turn red. And from what I understand, Florida tomatoes have nothing in terms of taste compared to the Mexican tomato. The Mexican tomatoes are grown to taste better.
Yeah, that's correct. I used to believe that the tomato is tomato, but
yes.
Instead there is so many varieties of tomatoes. And that matters a lot because it's not easy to substitute away from the greenhouse production of tomatoes done in Mexico. Why? Because tomatoes can differ by size, shape, and flavor. And typically those that are produced with greenhouses have a different flavor and size and shape than those produced open field, like in Florida.
And open field, you got to produce them during a certain time of the year, I would think. And the greenhouses means they're available year round.
That's also an important advantage of having a greenhouse production that allows producers to smooth production over the year instead of clustering the production in a few months a year.
This 2019 deal that the U.S. signed with Mexico to prevent dumping, I mean, does that deal now go away with these? What happened to these agreements between the two countries?
So if you look back since 1996, there's always been agreement and suspension of agreements every 5 years. So what I'm expecting is that actually right now it's not unlikely that we have a new agreement where pretty much the U.S. producers and through the Department of Commerce and Mexican producer, they sit to a bargaining table and they bargain over a new floor price, which is the lowest price that Mexican producers can sell tomato into the U.S.
And within those negotiations, I would imagine the tariffs would pop up again. I mean, he could go back on the tariff. He's certainly gone back on them before. He could do it here.
So typically what happens is that if you have an agreement, the agreement is based on a negotiated price without tariffs. If you don't reach an agreement, then we keep on having the 17% tariff.
Wow. All right, last question here. So I heard you say 10%. At what point do we start looking at tomatoes and saying, what's going on here with the pricing? Is that going to hit pretty soon?
I think, this price effect unfolds over the short term, the medium term, and the long term. I think overall, if we transit in a new regime of permanently higher tariffs, the price of tomato are going to go up. So
Yeah.
there's nothing to think about it. How fast this is going to happen, it depends. It depends on whether we reach a new agreement in the next months or not, and whether Florida starts producing with the greenhouse production, that it may be hard to do it in the short run, but it can be done in the medium and long run.
Interesting. Good stuff. Domenico Ferraro, again, ASU. Thank you so much for joining us. We
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Global apocalypse wipes out the dinosaurs.
If they hadn't met their destruction, our story never would have begun.
But what happened next has been a mystery.
How long did it take for ecosystems to reform, for life to recover?
Now, an amazing fossil record has been found.
Is the Rosetta Stone. It's telling us about how we got to be here.
It was like opening a door into a new world.
The untold story of the rise of the mammals on Nova.
Wednesday night at 9:30 on Arizona PBS.
I'm Chef Mark Tarbell. Welcome to Check Please Arizona, the show where Arizona residents recommend their favorite restaurants. In this episode, we're feasting at an Italian deli, a European-style bistro, and a restaurant serving modern cuisine alongside old-world cocktails.
Delicious, very tasty.
Crispy, and the inside was juicy.
Way more filling than I was anticipating.
Yeah, it's stacked full of flavor, too. I had the same thing.
Thursday night at 7 on Arizona PBS.
How prepared is Arizona and the U.S. when it comes to weather emergencies? It's a question being asked in many areas of the country after flooding killed 134 people in parts of Texas that officials now say did not have adequate early warning systems. Joining us now is ASU climatologist Randy Cerveny. Randy, good to have you here. Thank you so much for joining us. How prepared are we? Let's start in Arizona. How prepared are we for weather emergencies in general?
Well, we have a very good infrastructure in place, not only with the National Weather Service. That's where a lot of the initial discussion involving the Texas situation was with, but we have a huge number of meteorologists that are in situations here in Arizona that can help with regards to warning. Salt River Project, the Maricopa County Flood Control District. Those people are vital to giving us good weather information and warnings.
Okay, so with that in mind, what did we learn from the Texas floodings?
Well, I think the biggest thing is communication. One of the problems, even though the National Weather Service there in Texas had issued a flash flood warning as early as 4 o'clock in the morning, 3 hours before the actual event took place, the information was not transmitted correctly.
Wow.
And that's frustrating when weather people can do their jobs and then the information that they're coming up with doesn't get properly disseminated. That's a big problem.
Can that information be sent out and distributed by way of weather apps? We all have apps on our phones. Why can't we just use weather apps?
Well, that's a third party, you see. That's the problem is people think, oh, well, we don't even need the Weather Service. We've got weather apps. Well, the problem is all the information that comes on your weather app is derived from National Weather Service information. That the forecasts that are put out on those apps are the result of all the weather information that we have gathered by the National Weather Service.
So as far as predicting the weather, forecasting the weather, especially dangerous weather, are there upgrades needed? I think you got like a device here. What's this on? This helps with the forecasting?
Yeah, it doesn't seem like much, but this is a critical part of weather forecasting. This is a radiosonde. This is what's attached to a weather balloon. We launch weather balloons across the country at multiple sites, about 140 sites around the country, twice a day, once at 5 o'clock in the morning, once at 5 o'clock at night. These things go up, and as they are going up, they're transmitting temperature, humidity, wind speed, wind direction, and all of that goes into our computer weather models that tell us what's going to happen. Well, the trouble is we're having fewer of these now.
Why are we having fewer of these?
Well, that's a good political question.
Oh,
it's
okay.
not something that's necessarily the result of the National Weather Service. When we cut back on the number of people that are working at the Weather Service and the number of things like this, even our radar systems are becoming outdated. Those are all situations that can lead to a tragedy in the future.
Okay, so it sounds as though we're in danger of the forecasting becoming outdated. The emergency information, is that becoming outdated? I mean, what happened in Texas obviously was miscommunication and was a problem, and I'm sure they'll fix that. But is that something that's going to be a problem again in other areas?
Well, Texas has the same kind of problem that we might have a problem with as well, and that's that a lot of our places are very remote, and getting communication and information into those remote areas in time to save the people becomes very problematic. Now, we do have people that are looking into that, but the Texas kind of situation of flash flooding, I could see easily happening, and it actually has happened in the past, up in, say, the Mogollon Rim area,
yes,
where we've had flash floods.
Yeah, because in those areas, and we've learned this over the years, there could be a storm that you don't even know about that's dumping rain that's going to come hit you in no time.
Right. I did a study. It was a horrible situation back in '97 when we had a flash flood around Page, Arizona, and a number of French tourists were killed as they were going into Antelope Canyon. And the problem was, where they were at, it didn't rain.
You're right.
But the storm was actually 5 miles south of them, and it was all cascaded down into one very narrow slot canyon.
So with flood control projects in Maricopa County and in the state overall, what is needed? Where do we stand? What do you see?
Well, as I say, right now, my interpretation is that our infrastructure here is pretty good. We are understaffed at the National Weather Service. I'd love to see a few more people coming in. My students in particular, I would like to see them being able to take those kind of jobs. But we do have a lot of support groups like Salt River Project, like the Maricopa County Flood Control District. And I think those things are helping us a lot more than maybe some of the more affected areas around the rest of the country.
Last question, climate change. How much is climate change playing into all of this?
Well, it is, and that's the big problem, is that as our climate changes, things like flash flooding are going to be more prevalent, that we're going to have more flash floods. We're also going to have, unfortunately, the other side of the coin, more droughts, that our weather becomes, unfortunately, more unpredictable. So it would seem like we would want to try to get as much information about it as possible.
And if the weather is changing, the rainfall data and other data as well, that would need to change as well, I would think.
Oh, absolutely. And the more information that we have, the better we're going to be able to pinpoint those kind of changes that are occurring.
All right. Are you optimistic?
I'm not alarmed yet, but I'm not optimistic.
Okay, well, I tried to get that out of you. Randy Cerveny, ASU Climate. Real quickly, Randy, it's like 90-something degrees out here. What's happening with what's going on here?
We're getting a good surge of moisture coming up from the Gulf of California. That can lead to storms, but unfortunately, we're going to have some drier air moving into the state. So enjoy today, because the next week is going to be dry.
All right, Randy, good to see you. Thanks for joining us.
I'm Amna Nawaz. Tonight on the NewsHour, Republican leaders try to quell concerns over the Jeffrey Epstein investigation. That's coming up at 6 on Arizona PBS.
As Arizona's population continues to grow, the number of doctors in the state is falling behind. The University of Arizona's College of Medicine in Phoenix is introducing new initiatives to address the state's doctor shortage. Dr. Frederick Edward Wundesford is the Dean of the University of Arizona's College of Medicine in Phoenix. He joins us right now. Dean, good to have you here. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me.
You betcha. All right. We've talked about this over the years here. We got a teacher shortage and we got a doctor shortage. It never seems to change for doctors. Why is that?
It takes a long time to train to be a doctor. So that's part of it. When you have a doctor shortage, you're talking about a 10-year window, what it's going to take to get people out in practice. So we were short of physicians in 2010, and of course with the population growth, we're even shorter on physicians today.
The population growth, how big a factor is that?
It's a significant factor in the number of physicians that we're down. It was estimated we would be 50% less physicians than when we need by 2030. Some estimates as high as 70% less primary care physicians than we need by the same time.
And more than 1 in 4, the recent study, more than 1 in 4 Arizona adults do not even have a personal doctor.
Yeah. Yeah, and the primary care physician is the first person that you meet in medicine, sometimes the only person you meet. They get you plugged in for preventive care, and then they refer you to a specialist when you need, additional care.
And the issue, I would imagine, will be much worse in rural areas.
Definitely worse, and particularly in Arizona, with a lot of rural areas that have a very high, what the CDC calls the social vulnerability index. So if you have a 1 on that, you're the most vulnerable. We have several communities in the periphery of our state that have very high social vulnerability.
Yeah. All right. So, UA College of Medicine Phoenix working with. Are you working with Banner on this? What are you talking about?
We are. So, to mint a new doctor, we need a medical school, but we also need the training after medical school, what is referred to as a residency. Some people call it graduate medical education. To become a doctor, a licensed physician, you need to have both. You've got to have an MD, but you also have practical experience from a residency to get your license in a state. So Banner is providing a number of new positions, graduate medical education positions, which we need. And of course, we need the students to graduate to fill those positions.
So when you say that these are new positions and a number of new programs here, expanding the medical education program, the graduate, why wasn't that done before? I mean, what has changed?
The evolution of healthcare in our state. I think it's been helpful that there's a medical school in Phoenix associated with Banner. I think there's a virtuous cycle. So if we make students, we graduate students, they need training. Banner needs practicing physicians. Mm-hmm. Banner then agrees to fund additional training positions to have those physicians.
And we're talking primary care training for most part?
Not all primary care, but mostly primary care. So that would be family medicine, general internal medicine, general pediatrics would be primary care.
Correct me if I'm wrong here, but it sounds like some of these are pretty fast track to the point where you can graduate maybe a year early?
Correct. So that is the new program that the Arizona Board of Regents approved, and also our accrediting body called LCME approved. And that allows you to graduate in 3 years. Our program in particular, though, that graduate is going to go into primary care and not into specialty care. So that's where the accelerated track would be.
So you start your residency faster, you start your practice faster, and you get some of those numbers up.
Yes, and the other thing that's novel, that's really important here, is that the primary care track, there's a linkage. So you go into a residency, perhaps in the location where you did your medical student training, and you stay in that location. And the studies show the longer you train in a location, the more likely you are to stay in a location.
Are there incentives to stay in that location?
In some cases there are, but really in our case, the tuition will be a free tuition for our 3-year program. So that'll be the first incentive. And the second incentive will be you're going to graduate a year earlier.
I was going to say, if you graduate a year earlier, that sounds like less in the way of debt, but if it's free, Holy smokes, there is no debt.
Well, this is tuition, right? There's always room and board and other fees,
okay.
right? But still, 1 year less, the tuition debt is going to be less.
Scholarships involved here?
There'll be scholarships.
Okay.
There'll be full scholarships for this training.
Is there collaboration? Obviously, UA and Banner working together on this. What about other health organizations, entities here in the Valley and around the state? Is there more collaboration on this to get this situation fixed?
I think there is definitely collaboration. Obviously, ASU is in the middle of getting their medical school accredited. That's going to be a source of graduates. NAU is interested in forming a medical school. That would be another source of graduates. But probably medical students are one thing, but we need more graduate medical training, the residency positions that we talk about too, because it's a continuum.
And the state needs to be more attractive in getting doctors to come out here.
Yes, but of course, if they train here, they're more likely to stay here. So,
yes.
And it's much easier to retain somebody than recruit them here.
Okay, last question real quickly. I asked our weather guy if he was optimistic. I got a kind of one of these sort of things. Are you optimistic about the doctor shortage?
Very optimistic that we can have a solution toward it. And I think because there are these innovative programs, and we have the universities and as well as our regents behind a program to really expand medical education here.
All right, Dr. Fred Wundesford, UA College of Medicine in Phoenix. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you.
That's it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thank you so much for joining us. You have a great evening.